Hello, everybody, and welcome to the My BFF Business Leaders Podcast. This podcast is designed to focus the spotlight on leading voices throughout the world of business. From marketing and technology to energy and finance, this podcast will feature brilliant minds that are shaping the future of every industry. There has never been a better time to make more business friends forever, so let's get started.
This is actually the time where we work more and where our service is needed more. And then, our drop-offs are also no contact. Our volunteers typically, on a normal day would go inside a nonprofit and, kind of deliver the food. But now we ask them to leave it outside. So all of these things are new and have changed our operations, but it has also allowed us to continue serving people.
On this episode of the My BFF Business Leaders Podcast, we sit down with the CEO and co-founder of 412 Food Rescue, Leah Lizarondo. After being born and raised in the Philippines and finding herself moving to Pittsburgh by way of Carnegie Mellon University, Leah decided that she was going to dedicate herself to fight hunger and promote sustainability. Thus, 412 Food Rescue was born. Today, it is one of the fastest growing food recovery organizations in the U.S. and has prevented over 8 million pounds of food from going to waste via technology that mobilizes over 8,000 drivers across 5 cities. Leah is an incredible mind and leader that is working towards an even more incredible cause. So let's get started learning all about her and her profession. Hi, Leah. How are you today?
Good. Great to be here.
Thank you for joining us. We're really looking forward to it. And at this point, our audience has already had a brief introduction to who you are and what you do, but could you tell our listeners a little more about yourself, both personally and professionally, prior to co-founding 412 Food Rescue?
Yeah, so I grew up in the Philippines and moved to New York City after college and came to Pittsburgh by way of Carnegie Mellon. And I have always been in either tech or food. And in 2015, really began, actually 2014, after reading a report on the National Resources Defense Council on how much food is wasted, really began to figure out how to respond to that crisis.
Awesome. And could you go a little bit deeper into exactly what 412 Food Rescue is and how listeners could potentially get involved today?
Yeah, so 412 Food Rescue was founded in 2015 as a direct response to the fact that we waste almost half our food supply. And, on the other side of that, we know that so many are food insecure, and even more so during this time. So what we do is we look at this problem and we figured out, how can we respond to this best? And we realized that much of the food that is wasted and not reaching our homes happens, at the retail sector, which is grocery stores, restaurants, workplaces that have surplus food. And it's really very difficult to redistribute this food using traditional logistics models, people that depend on trucks and warehouses and hub and spoke models. So we decided to kind of change logistics so that we can recover this food. And the way we do that is really not novel. We follow the same design as, our current other commercial delivery models like, DoorDash and Uber Eats. And the big difference is the drivers that we mobilize through technology to, pick up and deliver food are all volunteers. And this model has worked phenomenally. We have now about 12,000 people in the Pittsburgh region alone receiving push notifications of available food to be recovered and delivered to not only nonprofits. In this crisis, we've started to deliver to households.
That's amazing. And is there a reason that you specifically chose Pittsburgh as your hub of operations, or did that kind of come just parallel because of your time spent at Carnegie Mellon?
It just because I was here, and really, it's Pittsburgh has responded, incredibly to this kind of new thing in service, right? And it's I always say, I'm glad that this started in Pittsburgh because a lot of the ingredients that require this to be successful is present in Pittsburgh.
And you touched on it there a little bit that the Pittsburgh community has been overall engaged with your cause. I'm a former baseball player, so I've known that Andrew McCutcheon has been heavily involved with your efforts. Are there any other well-known athletes or celebrities that are supporting 412 Food Rescue's mission?
Yeah, I mean, more and more. So recently, after we issued a kind of call for support, Michael Keaton, who is from Pittsburgh, supported one of our programs that we were piloting, which is distribution at bus stops for kids who are not in school right now. And that was, really such phenomenal support, not only financially, but the awareness that we raised for the program has been, incomparable.
And is there any kind of like foresight or tidbits you could provide us with future kind of celebrities or local community members that plan on getting involved into 2020 or beyond?
Well, I wish I could. No, we don't have anyone lined up, but we welcome anyone who is looking for a cause to support.
Awesome. Awesome. And I think it's only fitting kind of to talk a little bit about these unprecedented times of the COVID-19 pandemic. And we are curious of how your business, specifically with 412 Food Rescue, is being altered or has to change the way you operate because of the pandemic and how it will shape the future of your organization. If you could dive into that a little bit deeper.
Yeah, so when the crisis hit, one of the first things we did was really figure out, how to be able to continue to serve while also ensuring that everyone involved in the process is safe. That's anywhere from our food donors to our nonprofit partners to our staff, and of course our thousands of volunteers. And so it was a lot of kind of taking stock on our part, on the team, and really trying to figure out, okay, how do we change protocols and operations so that we can make sure that, we don't put anyone in harm's way. And, for a couple of reasons. The first reason is, as many of the congregant volunteering models are now impossible, we have at that time, and it continues to this day, experienced a high surge of new volunteers. So we had to make sure that these volunteers are trained and aware and doing things safely. And then secondly, the need is also extremely high now, so more than ever. So, I always tell the team that, while some folks are using this time to kind of take stock and take a step back from work as maybe, work from home is not quite, kind of the best model for increasing, kind of work modes. For us, we have no choice. This is actually the time where we work more and where our service is needed more. So we instituted a lot of new protocols for pickup and drop-offs, no contact protocols. We now only work with donors that can provide our volunteers gloves, but also be able to adhere to this no contact protocol, meaning the volunteers cannot go inside any establishment. The food that is donated needs to be brought out to them. And then, our drop-offs are also no contact. Our volunteers typically, on a normal day would go inside a nonprofit and, kind of deliver the food. But now we ask them to leave it outside. So all of these things are new and have changed our operations, but it has also allowed us to continue serving people.
That's great. That's great that people can continue to get involved and should still be involved because of the health protocol and the necessary steps you guys are taking. And to provide our listeners with a little perspective there, could you give us a ballpark range of how many volunteers you guys have as of right now?
So active volunteers, I don't know, meaning when I say active, that means people who have successfully completed a rescue. We have more volunteers than we have rescues. Mm-hmm. So not all of them are able to do it. And some volunteers are really quick to the draw. They claim rescues as soon as they pop up on the app. But we had about 1,200 new volunteers register on our app in March alone. So, awesome. That's a huge upsurge.
Yeah, and I saw that your Food Rescue Hero technology platform will be named a CES Innovation Honoree. Could you tell our listeners a little more about the mobile app itself and what exactly your technology does?
Yeah, so it was named a CES Innovation Honoree. CES is Consumer Electronics Show, which is one of the largest trade shows for tech. in Vegas, and it happened in January. So the technology is essentially, a driver coordinating platform, and it's the same, as I said, as what a DoorDash driver would use, or an Uber Eats driver, where they would see rescues or food pickups that are available. And if you want to take that food pickup, you can just click on it and take it. And there you go. It basically allows us to coordinate thousands of drivers.
That's amazing. And how many users do you have on your technology as of right now?
So in Pittsburgh, we have about 12,000. Nationally, we probably have about 14,000 now. We started sharing our technology with other cities in late 2018, and it's now in 5 cities, soon to be 6.
And what are those cities?
So we have Philly, Cleveland, Prince William County in Virginia, Los Angeles, and San Francisco, and pretty soon we're going to launch Vancouver.
Wow. So yeah, you're kind of all over the coast and up into Canada. That's amazing. And is there plans for continual growth after that as well? Is there any more kind of cities lined up in the near future?
We have this audacious goal of reaching 100 cities by 2030. And that was pre-crisis. And plans are in the works to accelerate that process so that we can, support other cities in helping, neighbors help neighbors.
And what would the best kind of avenue for individuals that want to get involved in other cities, where would they go to find out more information and contact you and your team?
Yeah, so in other cities, in Philly, they can download the Philly Food Rescue Hero app. And then in Cleveland, it's Hunger Network. In Prince William County, it's Prince William Food Rescue. In Los Angeles, it's Food Finders. In San Francisco, it's Food Runners. And then in Vancouver, when it comes in a few weeks, it's going to be Vancouver Food Runners. And all those apps are in the App Store, Google Play Store.
Awesome. And could you give our listeners a little bit more perspective inside of your internal operations at 412 Rescue? Like, who else makes up your team outside of you?
We have about 20 people on the team. We have staff in the field driving our trucks, our big green trucks. And then we have about 15 people on staff that are helping our volunteers and our stakeholders make sure that, we create the maximum impact.
And you mentioned earlier that 412 Food Rescue was founded in 2015. Now, 5 years later, how has your role personally changed within the organization?
My role personally. So, as co-founder and CEO, in the early days, I would do many of the rescues myself. Now I don't do as much as I used to do. I always tell my staff that I'm simply an administrator. And my goal really is to, harness support for our mission and make sure that, our staff and our team are healthy, and really trying to lead the organization so that it grows while making sure that everyone is, of course, still checking in on ourselves and keeping, motivated and, as I said, healthy.
Mm-hmm, absolutely. And your team, are they all working remotely at this time, I take it?
Yes, everyone is working remotely except for our field staff, who we are so grateful for.
That's amazing. And have you guys found it difficult to work remotely, or did you guys have the infrastructure in place that this was kind of a seamless transition?
Well, we didn't have, quote unquote, a formal infrastructure aside from, we already use a lot of the tools that people use. Mm-hmm. But it has certainly been a challenge to coordinate crisis response without seeing everyone face to face. But I would have to say that really, looking back, we really didn't do too badly. I think this team has really risen up, has been responsive, and has everyone has done everything they can to make sure our programs move forward.
Awesome. We're glad to hear that. And what does a day in the life of Leah look like prior to COVID-19? So with your full team in the office, kind of what was a day-to-day? Could you provide us some insight there for our listeners?
Yeah. So pre-COVID-19, I would wake up typically at, I'm an early riser. I would wake up at like 4:35 in the morning and, have my morning coffee by myself before my oldest wakes up. and, my bring, kind of get the kids ready for school routine usually starts at 6 and doesn't end until 9 when the last child is out the door. So it's from 6 to 9. It's a little bit of between emails and helping kids out. And then by 9, I'm typically on my way to work, and my day is typically mostly meetings. And I try to not do that for the rest of the week, but Monday is a meeting day, and where I meet with the team as well as external stakeholders. And I try to, spend and block off a few hours in my calendar daily to do actual work. And that's typically it. And then we go home and make dinner, and the day starts over again.
Awesome. That's great to hear. And yeah, waking up at 4:30, that sounds like you're a packed day right from the get-go. So it's amazing of what you've accomplished and kind of what you guys plan to accomplish with 412 Food Rescue. And you mentioned it briefly with kind of going into the other 100 plus cities by 2030. Are there any other goals just like that you and your team have established and are striving for in the near future or even long term?
I mean, I think our focus right now is near future. We're looking at, I feel like we've responded to the acute situation last month. And now what we're looking at is, near term, short term responses, and then even trying to figure out what we think this may look like in the next year and what we could do. So I think what we're doing right now is really taking the programs that we piloted last month and figuring out how to scale it and sustain it at least in this next year. Facebook just, canceled all gatherings over 50 people until June 2021. So kind of that's a foreshadowing of what the world may look like still, even 14 months from now. So it's a lot of near term, and then kind of the longest term we can probably look out right now is a year from now, and just trying to be responsive to kind of the situation as it changes.
Absolutely. And for our listeners, one last time, where is the best place for them to go to learn more about 412 Food Rescue? Could you provide them with kind of the URL for your website, or if you guys are active on social media, and anything of those kind of marketing avenues?
Yeah, so it's 412foodrescue.org for Pittsburgh and foodrescuehero.org for other cities. And our social media is just, / 412 Food Rescue on Facebook, Twitter, and Instagram, and Food Rescue Hero on the same platforms, and LinkedIn.
Great. And lastly, kind of as we wrap up here, first off, we wanted to thank you again for joining us today, and for everything you're doing. As you know, our company, My BFF Social, is a major supporter of you and 412 Food Rescue. And we really, really look forward to staying involved in all the bright future ahead for your organization. We like to end these podcasts on a kind of a fun personal note so our listeners know all about our guests. So I have a few questions for you if you're ready.
Yeah, of course.
So what was the first car you ever owned?
Oh, no, it's a Mitsubishi Lancer.
Is it safe to say that you've upgraded since then, or is that still the car that you own today?
I don't know that still exists as a model.
Okay. And what would you say your favorite Pittsburgh restaurant is?
Oh, that's always hard for me to answer. I always have no answer to that question. Yeah, I really can't say.
Is there a regular one that you go to quite frequently?
I love a lot of restaurants. I typically stay within my neighborhood, so I'm just going to kind of talk about the restaurants around where I live. I love the Anoyas. I love B52. I love Driftwood Oven, and it's Park Bruges. I could name so many more, but yeah.
Pittsburgh's plentiful in the good restaurant space. So I think, all of those are great recommendations.
Yeah.
What would you say your favorite hobby is?
I love to cook. I was a food writer before this, and, cooking has always been something that I find meditative and, always revert to it.
Great. And what is your all-time favorite movie?
That's also hard to answer. I don't know. I don't know that I have an all-time favorite movie. I think the movie I've watched the most has been Sound of Music.
Oh, nice.
Always never fails to make me happy as well.
Great, great. And if you could interview one person and really pick their brain, who would you choose and why?
Wow, these one person things are hard. I don't know if I have a one person thing. You know, there's many iterations of that question, like who would you have dinner with? It's so hard. You know, right now I keep a list of women leaders that, you know, I would love to have as, you know, in a round table, you know, a big dinner. And, you know, one of the things that, you know, I've been seeing on LinkedIn and all the news outlets have been just the extraordinary different results in countries where there are female leaders. And so, you know, those leaders are in my mind right now, and really impressed at how they have weathered this crisis.
Absolutely, absolutely. And I think you handled that last individual question really well, too. So you passed the test when it comes to our lightning round of personal questions. And thank you again, Leah, for joining us today. It was a pleasure speaking with you and learning more about the bright future for 412 Food Rescue. And we look forward to being a part of it.
Yeah, and thank you for having me. And, you know, my BFF Social support in many ways has made a tremendous difference to 412 Food Rescue, and our team and everyone that we work with truly appreciate the support.
Awesome. Well, thank you again, Leah. I hope you guys all stay safe. And thank you for joining us today on episode 3 of the My BFF Business Leaders Podcast.
Thank you.